Okay, this week I am ripping off the Band-Aid and going for 5 PVF meals and 1 PVF with a small c. And for just a reiteration, what's the small c? The small c is because it's a half peak range. A full peak range is 20 to 30, so half of that would be 10 to 15 grams, which is really classified by a half cup of fruit. Or it could be a quarter cup of basically any complex carb. But usually if we see a lowercase c, it's like that's a half cup of fruit. So that means that this woman is going to be doing all PVF meals with a half cup of fruit. And so she said, I've been really tired and foggy lately. Any tips for the transition? Fantastic question. So let's go through some science first of all, and I'm probably going to need my whiteboard here. So this is the whiteboard that I just literally keep on the desk, and anytime my clients are live, I'm just pulling this out. The big one's upstairs, ready for Bodybuilding World. Okay, so physiologically speaking, what do carbohydrates do? They break down to sugars, right? Sugar is your brain's primary fuel source as well as the muscles. So if your brain is, say, let's use to eating 150 grams of carbohydrates, which is very easy to get. If you're eating 4 PVC meals, you're probably getting close to 150 grams of carbohydrates, okay? Low carb for females, I would classify anything less than 100 grams of carbs, which you can hit 100 with about 2 PVC meals. So what happens whenever we have a decrease in that glucose coming into the brain or into the muscles, then we're not getting the fuel, the full fueling, okay? So what happens is the lower we get under 100, unless we're getting into ketosis, which could happen between 20 to 40 grams of carbs per day, which is all PVF, and even you have to really look at the veggies and the fats and make sure that they're lower carb veggies and fats, even if they're power foods, because the number does count. And in Power Foods Lifestyle, we don't count net carbs, it's total carbs. Then anything between 120 or 40, well, let's say 40 grams per day, there is going to be this yucky adjustment period. Well, and to be quite fair, you could have a yucky adjustment period if you were used to 400 grams per day and then you drop it to 150 grams per day. Any decrease in the sugars coming in to fuel the brain and the muscles will result in fogginess, hazy, lethargy, ornery, stuff like that. So here are my tips. Number 1, during the transition process, you get to choose. If you want to push aggressively, then you'll have to stick to the portion sizes, and I would say take St. John's wort. That's going to be for the ornery, irritability. So taking 4 is my recommendation. I was on the phone with my mom about an hour ago, and we were discussing our week, and she said it was a St. John's wort week for me last week, and I said that's my week this week. And so it really is very, very powerful. I know the bottle says 1 capsule, but take 4. Just trust me on that. And several times per day as needed. So that can help with, so you're not biting people's heads off. It's just going to kind of minimize that, like, it'll kind of go like, yeah, a little bit less, like you're going to tear someone's head off. The next thing would be, again, this is assuming you don't want to adjust your portion sizes, because you could increase your portion sizes of fats, give yourself surges of fat. So I would say even to the point of don't limit yourself in your fat portion sizes. Maybe it's a double, maybe it's a PV double F for a few days to just really give your body all of that amazing fat to help with this process of transition. That what this is going to do is get your body into lipolysis a little bit faster, where you're using fats for fuel. Your body, in the absence of this glucose, will start to produce more ketone bodies, which is the brain's secondary fuel source. And when your body is producing ketones endogenously from the liver, endogenous means inside the body, then you're going to be fueling your brain more. Now, your brain can feed both off sugar and ketones, which is one reason I personally do take exogenous ketones, meaning I drink them. I'm taking them from outside the body and putting them in, even though I'm not in ketosis. I want ketones in my body because I do live low carb. My lower carb it fluctuates between 40 and 100. This area that I'm telling you is kind of like a little bit of a rough transition. So because of that, I really like the feeling of having the ketones in to support any fluctuation that I have, because I don't ever nail it on the head every single day. I'm not like, hey, 50 grams of carbs every single day. I have a pretty flexible window, which is going to be flexible because I eat PVF with an occasional carb when I need it, want it, etc. Therefore, I'm going to have some fluctuation in those carbohydrates each day. So exogenous ketones is a great thing to add in. The ketogenics that I recommend, you guys should have learned about that in lesson 6. It is about $50 to $70 a month. The one I would recommend is Prime. I'd say test it for a month. I, as you know from that video, fell in love with it. I won't go without my ketones. And so there's that one suggestion, the exogenous ketones, but you don't have to have that. Like, so many people just muscle their way through it and just accept that it's going to be 2 to 3 days of adjustment. Another thing, get the portion sizes for fats increased, doubled up. Another adjustment would be look at what you're doing now. It sounds to me like you want to rip the Band-Aid off. That tells me you've been doing a lot more carbs. Perhaps it would be a better transition to do 3 to 4 days of one less carbohydrate meal and one PVF swap out, right? So PVC swap for a PVF, so that your carbs aren't going like 150, bam, 60. They're going like 150, 120 for a few days, 90 for a few days. And remember, these are never finite numbers. These are all ballparks, right? We know that. You guys are watching the videos. You're getting it. You're starting to get it, right? So that would be my recommendation for getting through that foggy, hazy stuff. Another thing is, the quicker you deplete the glycogen in your muscles, glycogen is stored form of carbohydrate, right? Let me just go through this really quick just to remind you. When you eat carbohydrate, let's take a sweet potato or rice, for instance, that breaks down into individual glucose molecules. There's fiber and some other things too, but primarily glucose. So those individual pearls, I like to think of them, is if they're actively needed, insulin is secreted. It's a storage hormone. It's going to pull them. We haven't gotten into, just because I said storage hormone, don't think they're going to fat. If we have properly functioning microvilli, and the doors that allow the insulin to pull the sugar into the cells to be used in the liver or in the brain, then that's great. But there's a finite amount. I like to think of it like a measuring cup, like all of your muscle sites, your liver, and what your brain needs, all are a measuring cup. They're gonna fill up, and at the point of filling up, overflow, that overflow is when fat storage happens, right? So I know I'm giving you a whole background before I go into this, but as you know, that's what I like to do, because the more we understand, the more critically we can think and really process through decisions, rather than have it be this ambiguous, irrational feeling inside of our heads. And so what happens is, and just a reminder, remember, if you have insulin resistance, that's where the door to the cell, those little microvilli, they're not very sensitive to insulin, so they're not pulling the sugar into the cells to be used. They're like, yeah, I can't do it. Therefore, where else can the sugar go but to be stored in adipose tissue, and usually in the hip, thigh, stomach region, okay? All right, so going back to this whole, like, why did I get on this? Because the storage, when they are pulling them into the cells, your body takes those little glucose molecules and it strings them together into this like strand of pearls. So think of it like a pearl necklace now. So all the glucose is connected, and it's now called glycogen. So that's the process of glycogen created, and that's where we need insulin. Well, we have a hormone that works in the opposite direction, which is called glucagon. In the event of you have dropping blood sugar, instead of going completely hypoglycemic, your body is going to say, hey, we have some reserves of glucose to balance our blood sugar. We need it between 80 and 110, or else something bad is going to happen in your body, okay? Especially if you have diabetes, you probably know this better than others, is it's going to go break down those pearl necklaces. Glucagon does that. It's called gluconeogenesis. It breaks it down back into its individual glucose molecules. So then it's like, oh, brain, here you go. We still have this for you. So that is depleting glycogen. That's one reason why fasting depletes glycogen and gets you into lipolysis, because your brain has to break down that glycogen into glucose molecules. Well, simultaneously, what else can deplete your glycogen? Well, if we don't have incoming fuel, incoming food, and we are doing high intensity exercise, that's called anaerobic. Anaerobic exercise, anything over about 75% of your maximum heart rate, which your maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age, that's your max. So for an example here, let me pull out my calculator, I'll give you mine, and then you can work off that. This is really fun, cool science. that you need to know. So that's why I'm taking the time to share this with you. So 220 minus your age, so I'm 30. So my maximum heart rate is 190. Now, actually, in the past few weeks, I have actually hit 190. And I've asked myself, like, are you going to pass out? Are you like tasting blood? Are you okay? Those are usually our indicators of whether we're done, like don't push anymore. And so I've been okay. So that tells me my heart's doing really well. It's very strong. So how would I find that 75%? Well, I'm going to take that 190 times 0.75. If you remember back to middle school, we multiply by percentages in decimal form. So my heart rate needs to be above 143 for me to tap into my anaerobic storage supply, which is glucose. Well, so that means I can deplete my glycogen faster so that I'm avoiding the natural time of it depleting, which is why I get ornery and irritable because there's not enough coming in and my body is depleting the glycogen, trying to get as much to the brain, but it's just not getting enough. Are you seeing where I'm going with this? So if I choose to just, let's bust through this, I want to deplete my glycogen, I want to get this going, then we can expedite the process through what I would recommend is you could fast. You could fast like from, eat your final meal and then fast until like 1 p.m. This is actually a strategy that we're doing in Body Buddies world right now. And then eat your meal. Now here's the rule. You cannot begin or end fast with a PVC meal. It has to be PVF, otherwise the blood sugar is going to go crazy. You've got to stay super stable within that. And so when you break your fast, then you're doing PVF meals. Eat a few PVF meals until you're feeling like, okay, I'm grounded, and then do a HIIT session. So 5 to 10 minutes. One of my most well-known HIIT training programs is called Shred Nation. And it's very simple. You can do it on the stairs, on the bike, on the elliptical, and this is where you're going to go as hard as you can, 100% effort. You can put the resistance on as much as you want. I've lately been experimenting with a little less resistance and faster speeds, and I really like that. But you can also go really heavy and just kind of like churning, but whatever is going to get your heart rate up for that 20 seconds, then you got to drop the heart rate down. So that means no resistance, barely even pedaling or barely, walking or going on the stairs at all. And all my clients, I want them like testing their heart rate, and your goal is within that 40-second rest period to watch your BPM, your beats per minute, heart rate drop at least 10 beats per minute. You can train it to drop faster. I'm working on sometimes getting mine to 15. It's not all the time though. It's an ongoing effort, and you'll be amazed, like when you start really doing this religiously, you'll be amazed at how, depending on how much sleep you got, how you're feeling, your moods, like that'll determine how quickly your heart rate drops, and that's an indicator of cardiovascular health. So we want that to be able to drop and have the capacity to drop quickly. So anyhow, you do 10 minutes of that, 20 seconds on, 40 seconds off, 20 seconds on, 40 seconds off. Now, I do have other varieties where I have people only do 5 minutes at a time. I have varieties where I only have people do 7 minutes at a time or 8 minutes at a time. So if 10 minutes is just too high of an intensity for you to do that, that's fine. Adjust back to 5 minutes per day. And you'll know once you are completely through that glycogen, because your body's just going to feel like limp. And picture all those muscle sites, because your body it's like we've used up all the pearl necklaces, we've broken them down to feed them into the energy, and you've exhausted all those reserves, and that's why you feel like this. So what should be done when you're in that mode? You double up your fats until you're feeling like okay again, like, all right, I'm good. So during this process of acceleration I just am telling you about, I don't want you meticulously measuring portions. I want you eating principles. Eat power foods lifestyle principle way, which is portion of protein, portion of veggies, and a portion of fats. And if you need double the fats, I'd highly recommend that. What that looks like is the difference between 4 ounces on a bed of greens with your bell pepper, your celery, your spinach, your romaine, whatever it be, and 2 ounces of avocado versus 2 ounces of avocado with 10 olives with a handful of nuts sprinkled on top and olive oil over the salad. That's the difference between sticking strictly to a PVF meal specificity or going off the principles in order to get your body into that environment, and then you can tighten your portions. I feel like that would be the more sustainable route, especially where most of us don't have the time nor desire to go around feeling yucky all the time. Is that right?
Hi, I'm Christy Joe. I'm a mind and body strategist, and I want to invite you to come get my book. But you know what? The book is long and sometimes we don't want to read, so I've made it into a cheat sheet, basically the Cliff's Notes version of the book, the most important principles you need to know and start applying today. So come on over, get your free download. As you apply the principles in this cheat sheet, you are going to start feeling so much more confident, feeling like this is actually doable. Strategic nutrition is different from just healthy eating, and there are explanations for why you're feeling the way you're feeling, all of the advice you've been given over the years that hasn't worked for you. I'm going to provide so much clarity to all of that. So come join me, get your free cheat sheet, and I can't wait to help you on your journey to power your body. Let's do it one meal, one workout, one day at a time.